Hi, I'm Georgia Raisman, and I'm here on the Monday Scoop this morning with Nina McLemore, who is a power women's clothing designer. She designs for women who are used to having power of one sort or another, either political, economic, in the law, finance, and politics area. She has designed clothes for women as relatively powerful as Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren and Janet Yellen and Christine Todd Whitman. And so today we're not going to talk as much about powerful women as we are about how women dress as they get older, how women start to feel abandoned by fashionistas of the 20s and 30s who've abandoned them. But I want to get back to Nina herself. Nina grew up in Mississippi and started liking fabrics and clothing and things of that sort when she was very young. But her field in college was economics, and then she went on to an MBA and a career partly on Wall Street before joining Liz Claiborne. But I'd like Nina to tell us more about getting to Liz Claiborne, getting to fashion, and why all of that happened. So tell me, Nina, how did all of that happen?
It began to happen when I was very young, because my mother was quite creative and was really an artist. And she was also the florist in town. And she had grown up making everything she wore. And so that was just a tradition, and you could have anything you wanted. So you could go to the store and pick out the fabric, pick out the pattern, and mix them all up and just make and design your own things. But I didn't think of it as a career until I met two women while I was on my way back from my junior year in France, who had been buyers for a department store, and they'd been to Paris to the couture shows. And I said, "What did you do? Tell me. I don't understand." So I changed my majors and went into retailing, and first buyer, department store, in a department store, merchandise manager. And I came to New York to work for May department stores, which was comparable to Macy's at the time. And my job was international purchasing. So I was traveling all over the world, figuring out what we should be buying where. And most of this was in apparel, but I began to see more accessories. And I also began to realize that before it was called the glass ceiling, I began to realize that the companies in the retail industry would not see women as presidents of companies. It was okay to be a buyer or a merchandise manager or a fashion director, but the business side of it, somehow they didn't think women were qualified for. So I realized that I'd hit that point. And Liz Claiborne had started in 1976, and by 1980 was doing $100 million. Writing, Liz had great taste, and their target customer was a young working woman. Women went from being 28% of the workforce to 48% of the workforce in between like 1975 and 1985, and they were searching for careers, as you did.
They were us.
Yes, they were us. So I went to them and I said, I've been seeing a lot of accessories in Europe and in Asia, in much better presentations and much more interesting accessories than I'm seeing in the US, and I think your customer needs accessories." So that was that.
I said, do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So after you did that, and did that for a long time for Liz, what made you start moving over into actual clothing yourself?
Well, I'd always been in clothing. The accessories was different, was new. But I had joined when it was founded, something called the Committee of 200, which is a women's organization that initially was fostering entrepreneurship of women. And it had grown out of National Association of Women Business Owners for women who were running more successful businesses. So that was founded in 1981, and I joined International Women's Forum, Women Presidents Organization, and more recently Women Corporate Directors, and realized that those women that Liz had dressed when they were in their 20s and 30s had become very successful, and they needed clothes that fit their new position. At the same time, the department store world had become over-proliferated with branch stores, malls, and were selling more and more off price to get people to come in the door. And the result, and then the stores began to merge, and the result was that whatever had been at the top end of Macy's or Bloomingdale's even was no longer viable in that atmosphere. So there's a huge gap, both price-wise and age-wise. So if you go into most of the department stores today, maybe there's a jacket for $300, but that's about the highest. So that's not appropriate. Or if you go to Saks and Bergdorf's, they want to sell clothes at $1,500.
Very high price points.
Right. So there's a huge, and they want a high margin on them. So there's a huge price point difference that's not out there. And there's also, we're baby boomers.
Right.
And there are 65 million of us approximately.
Right.
And there's 65 to 75 million millennials. So the whole fashion industry wants to really go for the millennials. And there's a much bigger international part of this, which is, there are 250 million middle-class Chinese. And so the Asian, the Middle East, and the Russian, in India, where most of the people had no money and had no options, now do. So that if you think about the international designers that you read about, they're really focusing on A, the Far East or Middle East, and B, on the accessories. So
what age group are they focusing on those in that population?
Primarily younger. It's definitely because it's people who want to have the brand. There are definitely a group of people who want to have the brand and want everybody to know they're wearing the brand.
That's why you see so many Asians in Tiffany's.
Exactly.
And so many Tiffany's stores in Japan.
Because, the first time I went to China, everybody had on either the blue uniform or the green army uniform, men and women. Nobody had anything. And that's, 30, 40 years ago. So now you have this huge demand for things that they were never able to have.
Yeah, and it's for brands.
Right.
But you stepped out and started your own line in 2001.
2003.
2003.
Actually.
So you were of a certain age at that point already, and that was very ambitious. So that's what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in the fact that you did. To decide it in your prime that this is something you're going to start at this point. When now people knew you in the field, but they didn't know you as a women's clothing designer as such.
Correct. But the women I knew through these business organizations had all been complaining to me for years that they couldn't find anything to wear. They had one or two options, and once they, had enough of option A or option B, where did they go from here? So I listened to them, and I went up and down Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue, and I portrayed myself as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs. I figured people would pay attention to me. And I couldn't find anything. And I realized that they were right. So I started the business. That customer, the professional woman, was my original target customer. And I wanted to sell it direct to consumer because I could give much better quality for the price. And I could be closer to my consumer. I could listen to them and talk to them. So we have 14 stores. We have about 35 women who sell the collection privately, usually in their homes, in towns that aren't big enough to have a store. And we do sell some wholesale accounts. But out of that, I learned that there's another population that, frankly, I really didn't know, and that's the woman who is what I call a community professional. She's running this board, or she's on this committee, that committee, and she wants to look chic and elegant. And most of those women don't want to show that they have great wealth. They're what I call quiet money. So we have two customers, the community professional and the work professional.
So the idea is not to be wearing something that is obviously a designer suit so that people won't be able to, for whatever reason, I'm not going to say, I know that $6,000 suit from Acris or Armani or somebody of an obvious nature. And yet it's a well-tailored, well-put-together piece of clothing, and everything that you look like you're well turned out.
Right.
And relatively conservatively. You're not trying to look like you're a 25-year-old, and you're not going to. And the other thing I like about your clothes personally is that so many of them are shade into nighttime. They shade into cocktail hours. They shade into. They can be.
Well, the fact is that regardless of how you spend your days, these women women in this age group are traveling a lot, whether they're traveling for pleasure or whether they're traveling for work. So they want things that are flexible. They want things that they can wear a pair of black pants and go for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks with a carry-on. So our emphasis is on the jacket because that's the part when you walk into a cocktail party or you walk into a business room or whatever, what people really see most of the time is from here up. So we emphasize the jackets and fabrics that travel, pack, don't wrinkle, and color is key to our collection.
So you're not the black is the new black.
No. You know, because most women look so much better in color, and people respond to you better. And we have many women who come in and say, if I buy another piece of black, my husband's going to kill me. You know, he doesn't want to see me in more black. So, and it's not a very flattering color for most people. So we really work very hard to help people figure out there's some universal shades, corals, blues that have red in them. Purple actually is a quite flattering color. Reds, this is a red, we've got the balance between the blue and the pink, the blue and the orange. And the other color that's really quite flattering on most people is turquoise.
Well, I hope we get some shots of your studio, which is here in Manhattan. Because it's like looking at a jewel box. The shades on the walls are so wonderful, and you can find pieces here in New York at your studio or in one of the 14 stores around the country. Do you sell online?
Yes, I forgot to mention that. We have a Nina McLemore website. Another key to my collection, people walk in the door, it's the color that attracts them, and then they look at the fabrics. When I was growing up, my mother wouldn't let us sew on anything if it wasn't a natural fiber. So she would, and burn it. We'd get a little swatch and we'd burn it, and if it balled up, it clearly had oil in it, so we wouldn't cut that. So I learned very early that if you buy good fabrics, so our fabrics are meant to wear and pack and travel.
And you manufacture here in New York, which is another great thing. So it's not being packed off to some workshop or sweatshop in China or India or Vietnam or something like that.
It has a lot of benefits, including, although we've tried not to do this very much, but including the fact that if you walk in and you want your pants 3 inches longer, or you want, a dress that has a little bit different specs than our normal, or if you need something for a wedding or you're speaking at something and you need it immediately, or you need it in a few days, we can do it.
That's excellent. So when you are you also do things run very much true to size? So if I'm an 8 in this, am I an 8 in all of your styles? Is that something you can count on?
Within our collection, yes. And some people feel that our collection is a bit on the full side. It's definitely a fuller cut than, the designers, who are primarily, as I said, focusing on the Asian and the European market, where women are smaller.
And I think they're also focusing on flattering too. If they can make you think you're a 2 instead of a 6, then you feel like you're very, very thin. I suspect there's that element of it.
Honestly, not really. Part of it has to do with what we call a fit model, and a fit, we make sizes 00 to 18. So 8 is right in the middle. So you fit on an 8, and then you grade it, as we on a computerized grading, up, down, and up. So the size 8, and I want to try the clothes on. So,
but what's interesting, and this is quite off the topic, unexpected. In looking at an old Perry Mason episode, this is from the 60s. One episode involved a dress designer or a dress salesman going from shop to shop, and he's identifying a person that he saw, and he identifies her and says, "Oh, I know her because she's a size 8." This woman, he says she might have been size 12. She was so slender.
Right.
So slender. So in the 60s, the person who was deemed and I think he said she was a 10 or 12 or 14, the person who was deemed a 12 or 14 then would be like a 0 now. That was what I meant by size flattering, because the sizes have got to have changed from that.
They have, and part of it has to do with the population. and the fact that the population has gotten heavier. You know,
so the sizes had to go down so that
Right.
we weren't calling everybody at 22.
Right, and the other part of it has to do with the fact that if you were certainly in what we call the junior sportswear world, you wanted things tight. I mean, there were see-through blouses and no bras and hip hugger pants, and so part of it has to do with the fact that we've gotten fuller. And certainly as you age, there are very few people who get more slender as they age.
Well, that's for sure, unless they've got a disease, which is terrible. It would be awful. Well, thinking about when you went into business on your own, did you find any pushback from the fact that you were starting your own business as a woman and at that age in your life? Or did you feel, had you been connected enough and successful enough that that was not an issue for you?
I think the only thing that I found odd was that when I went to the textile mills and said, you know, here's my concept and here's what I'm doing, they said, oh, that's not a market. You know, why do you?
You're second guessing you.
It's not a big enough market. You know, they're not that. Are there that many working women? Well, 20% of the C-suite executives are now women. Mm-hmm. So, and then there's again this other market of the women who, basically, I design clothes for women who want to look chic, understated, and elegant. I mean, you know, we've always had the concept that simplicity is better. So making clean line, beautiful fabrics, gorgeous colors, clean lines is always going to be in fashion. But the market, the people in the market thought that it, you know, basically at that moment in time, I think it was Escada had done a study and found that their average age was 50 for their customers, and they panicked. And they said, oh my God, we're going to be out of business in 10 years. So whereas everybody wants to go after the 15, 20, 30-year-old, she's probably only going to wear that brand for 10 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. If you come along and like my clothes at 50, I'm going to have you for 40 years, I hope.
Mm-hmm. I've been wearing your clothes for as long as I've known you, which is, I didn't want to say how long, and I have some of your jackets still in my closet, and the only reason I'm not wearing them is that I've lost weight, and I have to get them tailored, because some of them are really so continuously wearable, and they are elegant, and they travel, and I love the fabrics.
Well, you know, the thing that there is a recognition today that we all have unconscious bias, and that we all look at someone and make an instantaneous, not thought through decision about who they are. So the image, understanding that, and then understanding how important the image is that you project at any age. As I see people putting things on and see how it makes them feel and how it looks. So for example, almost all of my collars are stand-up collars. I can turn this down, but it has a whole different look.
Oh yeah, you look much tidier and sweeter. Much more affirmative.
So one of the first jackets that I did that had the stand-up collar, I realized it made people look taller, skinnier, and more authoritative. So part of it is an evolution as you see people and you feel, and you get reports back from people and how they feel. And then there are two studies that I know of called about enclothed cognition. And basically they show that if people are wearing things that they feel better in, and or maybe they've even been told that they're a doctor versus white coat, doctor, you're a house painter, they do better on cognitive tests if they feel. And then there's another test where they give one group part of sweats and another group suits, and they have to negotiate a deal. Well, the guys in the suits always win because they feel better about themselves and they feel they're more likely to stand their ground, and the people in the sweats are more likely to defer to them. So not only do you feel better,
it gives you confidence.
It gives you confidence, but the response that you get from other people then makes it into a dynamic. So it keeps building on itself.
Because women often say that they, after a certain age, that they feel like they're invisible. That women of an earlier age are treated like they're sex objects, or you get whistles on the street, and then at a certain age you become invisible. But I think when I'm wearing your clothing, I never feel invisible. I always feel like I'm projecting some level of confidence and self-assurance that I'm just not invisible anymore. And not that I'm going to get a wolf whistle, but that I'm going to be noticed.
Right.
And I think that that's noticed in a good way. I think that can't help but be a good thing.
Well, I had a funny thing happen on the train this morning. I took the train from Washington, and there was a guy, I've seen him on the train before, I guess, but as he sat down, he winked at me, and I thought, what was that? He was much younger than I was, but what was that all about? I don't know. But you do want to be
Noticed.
seen, and you do want to be taken seriously, and you don't want people to put you in the back of the restaurant or put you in the back of the line, or you want people to...
Affirmation.
Yeah.
Affirmation. Well, I think your clothes give us that affirmation, and that's what's such a joy. The color, the cut, the feeling of confidence, and the popped collar. And I appreciate all of those things, and I think all of the women who wear your clothes do. I should say, too, they're at what is, for many women at this stage of our lives, an affordable price point, considering that we're buying them for years and years and years of wear. And we're buying them not so that we're going to look like somebody's going to say, oh yeah, I've seen her in that jacket, but because we're going to project that level of confidence that will make people feel she's always well dressed.
But if you ask me for advice, and it's honestly it's the same advice I give to 20-year-olds, but for somewhat different reasons, I think you start with the hair, because I think well-groomed, well-cut, hair is a starting point. Makeup, there have been independent studies that show that people who wear some makeup are actually respected more than people who don't wear any. So, being proud of yourself and, grooming yourself well. In fact, it's color, and then, as I said, the first part, that everyone really notices is really usually from here up. So put your quality. I say to young people, if you don't have that much money, invest it in the jacket, because that's what people notice. And men are much more cognizant of value in fabrics than women realize, because they go to the store and people are saying, oh, this is a merino wool or whatever. So put it in and then make sure the bottoms fit. I had a woman who came in the other day, and she was not tall, and she really liked a 3/4 length coat, and her friend said to her, oh, but that length doesn't look good on you. And I said, it's not that it doesn't look good on her, it's the pants that are wrong, because she had on pants that were too full. And so when you slim down the leg, then the 3/4 length coat. So it is about proportion, but making sure your clothes fit. If you've gained weight, if you've lost weight, not too tight, but make sure they fit.
Well, that's the takeaway then. The clothes is the appearance and the presentation.
Right.
Gives you that confidence and that affirmation. Well, I really appreciate your coming, Nina.
Thank you.
It's been a tremendous joy having you, and I look forward to seeing you again and visiting you at the studio again.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Thank you for joining me today on the Monday Scoop. Next time I'm going to be talking with a physical therapist, John Fahey, about why doing physical therapy consistently when we're needed, either for an acute or a chronic illness, is very important to keeping us up and moving after an illness. Thanks for joining me, and if you have any questions or topics you'd like to see me talk about, please get in touch. It's themondayscoop@gmail.com.